details, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. So let's waste no time. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, wee. Let's get to it. Story number 1. As the world recovers, the business world is looking to China. It's not good. Now, a few big stories about how a lot of companies are looking to China for business growth are starting to emerge. They're looking for China to even stay afloat. Now, with the United States behind the 8 ball in the battle with COVID-19, China seems to be patching up and revving up its engines. The details within this story highlight the many challenges for U.S. businesses, especially when talking about travel. Now, after Trump blacklisted China's tech giant Huawei, many firms now have to look towards the future decisions by the Biden administration. Now, Huawei was accused of sharing tech secrets with the Chinese government. So that's a big there's something going on inside of story number 1. Now, President Trump has banned U.S. investments also for firms who have had ties to China. Now this would have aided the Chinese military. So these firms that were investing in China would have aided the Chinese military, according to a CNN article. Now, the executive order applied to 31 Chinese companies. So there's a lot going on inside of story number 1, and that's why I made it in this week. If President Trump banned U.S. investments into some of these firms, and some of these businesses are still turning to China, this story could develop in the coming weeks, because the United States has been really behind the 8 ball when dealing with COVID-19, especially when you talk about the GDP and growth, while China is pulling away at full steam ahead. So keep an eye on story number 1. Big headline, and it could develop more and more in the upcoming weeks. Story number 2. Drug abuse is still an issue. Thousands of deaths linked to fentanyl being sold on the streets has brought the discussion of drugs back into the news. Drug overdoses remain a top concern, as increased drug use seems to be a big problem across the world. Story number 2 is not only developing, but it is hitting a lot of communities, even your surrounding communities, because of the fact that drug use is still a problem. And where there is depression and loss of jobs, there is a high potential for people to use drugs. So keep an eye on story number 2, because people need to occupy their time, and they may occupy their time doing something that is not constructive. Story number 2, big headline, big developing news story. Story number 3. Hospitals are looking for a better plan. Now, one headline says that hospitals are looking for more workers, while states are now enforcing new rules to help hospitals that are strained out. Now, many hospital staff and workers still don't feel that they are being properly cared for, as the nation still tries to get a handle on the rapid spread of COVID-19. Now, with many health professionals experiencing burnout, this story could become a central issue and could be why state governors are in panic mode. Hospitals play a big part in what is actually happening. This is healthcare. Now, a report in The Atlantic says that healthcare workers feel that no one is listening to them because hospitals are seeing a rise in patients. That means that the spread, people may not be listening to them when they're talking about using your mask and social distancing. So that's why story number 3 is so important. Now, a steam pipe, this is another story, a steam pipe explosion at a VA hospital last week in West Haven, Connecticut, caused the death of 2 people. Now, none of the victims were VA patients, but this still draws attention to safety concerns at hospitals and what could actually be happening in this burnout. Maybe some of these people didn't have enough time to do the maintenance, so that's why these stories are developing. COVID-19 is labeled a humanitarian disaster by health experts who also feel that the United States is failing to contain the spread of this disease. But there is some light at the end of the tunnel. There's been 2 vaccines that have been making big headlines that could be in circulation. Some of them have even already been shipped out to some locations. So story number 3 is really not only developing but showing what is actually happening on the ground and inside of these hospitals, as we will see how this develops in the coming weeks. Story number 4, what's next in the Middle East? Now, it's been a long time since news about Iraq and Afghanistan has really caught the attention of Americans. Now, in a long, exhausting war that has cost billions of dollars and lost the United States a lot of lives, President Trump has announced that in his final days of office, he will withdraw troops from Iraq and Afghanistan, leaving mixed feelings with key officials about the ongoing strategy in the already war-torn region. Now, some feel that this could be a sign that the dust could be settling in some parts of the Middle East, while others feel the dust will never settle. Ethiopia seems to be in the mix too. They're now on the brink of more growing conflicts now also inside of this story. Now, the concern now is preventing the same problem that happened to Syrian refugees when war broke out in Syria some time back. So this is just trying to prevent the same thing from happening in Ethiopia. Now, although Ethiopia is far south of nearby ravaged neighbors, any conflict in any of these regions could put a drag on foreign affairs because of recruiting and terrorism and other issues that emerge in ongoing global conflicts. So this story is taking center stage, and that's why it is made it in this week. Now, Iran reportedly has 12 times of what's permitted under the 2015 nuclear deal, and apparently Trump asked for an option to strike Iran's nuclear site. This is another story that is developing inside of the Middle East saga that many people thought to be dying down. Now, with Trump pulling away from the nuclear deal, Joe Biden, who is now looking to take over, they're saying that he will consider rejoining the nuclear deal with Iran. Now, relations between Iran and the United States remain at an all-time low, and many Iranians feel that the United States is acting like a bully, and many Americans feel that Iran cannot be trusted. So this is a big developing story inside of relations and the ongoing saga inside of the Middle East. Now, in this developing story, it will be interesting to see how each country earns things out under a new administration. Story number 4 is a big headline. That's why I made it in this week. Well, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I'll be right back with the top 4, so don't go anywhere. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. So let's waste no time. Let's get to it. Story number 5. Could this be a good time to adjust how doctors operate? Now, this could be a time to get creative. With hospitals struggling and small doctors' offices barely staying afloat, it may be time for doctors to get innovative with how they do business and offer their services to the community. It is clear that with the closure of a number of U.S. hospitals, it may be time for a new operating model for doctors because demand for doctors is still up. So it may time to now to get a little bit creative with how to maybe go back to home health care visits. So we'll see how story number 5 develops. Big headline that made it this week, and that's why I said number 5. Story number 6, Joe Biden's plan to make adjustments to 401k plans, home ownership, and building wealth. Now, foreclosures and lack of needed insurance coverages hit some areas pretty hard this year. Some have become discouraged to own a home because of how land ownership is structured. You probably never really own the home because you have to pay the government, and on top of that, you have to pay the mortgage company. Now, Joe Biden plans to provide a $15,000 tax credit while also enforcing a fixed tax rate on 401k 401k contributions. He also plans to provide a 26% credit on the dollar amount contributed. Now, this would incentivize lower earners to contribute to a 401k plan. I mean, gives them motivation while diminishing tax incentives for high earners. So there's something going on here. Is this plan going to take away from the high earners and spread things out to the lower earners? Now, the overall goal is to encourage people to put more money into Roth IRAs and Roth 401k plans. Biden also plans to enforce a federal down payment assistance programs with a $640 billion federal investment over 10 years. Now, this is a goal to equalize housing opportunities. That means make the markets more fair to all races, all colors, and all creeds, and all people trying to own a home. Now, there's even another plan inside of this. They're calling it baby bonds. Now, this is a hot topic because it's trying to spur wealth. Now, this will create a federal savings account held by minors until they turn 18. Now, there's a lot of discussion brewing inside of Joe Biden's plan. People are asking, how are you going to pay for this? Are you going to take away from the wealthy and give to the poor? So, story number 6 is creating a lot of buzz. That's why I made it in this week. It almost made it to the top 2. Story number 7 in the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Whew. The next administration has to make the economy and jobs their top priority. Big headline. The markets have been swinging up and down since COVID-19 came around, but with a vaccine looming, the next administration needs to make the economy a top and the job market a top priority fast. That means with this vaccine, there could be some light at the end of the tunnel. A new study also shows that COVID-19 cases are surging and causing museums to lose millions of dollars, and job losses are mounting. So story number 7 has a lot to do with the job market, museums and other business monuments having to close down and follow protocol. Now, nearly 30% of American museums remain closed, and they're still closed since lockdown in March. Now, this story paints a real picture of what the road to recovery will look like. It could be a big road. Some say that could take years to overcome. Now, a CNBC report says that 36% of college students say that they worry that they won't have enough money to last the rest of the semester. So a lot going on inside of story number 7. You can see why it made it to the top 2 this week. Fed chair says that the economy we knew might be over due to COVID-19. So it's saying that it may not, the economic strategies and the economy that we knew in the past may look totally different after COVID-19, and it may take some time to patch up all these wounds and especially recover financially. Story number 7, big headline, big developing news story. Story number 8 in the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. The big argument when it comes to government and what the American people want from their government. Now, what many Americans fear the most seems to be the government having too much power and doing all of the thinking for the people, and people not thinking for themselves. Now, in the wrath of COVID-19, the world has witnessed constitutional rights being trampled on just to prevent the spread of this virus, with a virus that has a high survival rate. So people have been breaking the rules and saying that the virus is the reason. Now, big government has also left a divide between the haves and the have-not, the rich, the poor, and the middle class. There's a big divide, and COVID-19 has just brought a lot of this to light. Now, people who pay high taxes while everyone else stresses the need for more government help seems to also be an issue. So this is why story number 8 is such a big story. The challenges, the big challenge seems to be how to balance this all out and make it fair for everyone living in America. But without money, this is the big problem, and a good job, how can capitalism be fair? So story number 8 deals with all of this and more. Now, this is why this story is made in this week. Now, this story also focuses on the health debate also. 6 Massachusetts families sued the state over mandatory flu vaccines of vaccine requirements. So that means even with health care, does the government, we saw this with the Obama administration, where they made it mandatory for people to have to apply for health care or they would get penalized. So a lot of people are upset about this. Now, there's also some things that are going on inside of this. There's been a rise in hate crimes in 2019 alone. Now, with crime, period, this highlights a growing concern when it comes to cities trying to maintain local control of their communities. 2020 alone brought in protests, a wave of social issues not seen on U.S. soil in a long time. So people have something to gripe about, but they may be going about it the wrong way and trying to get attention. But could this all do with how government is handling? Now, the government says that they've been doing their job, but there's been a lot of unrest in 2020 when it comes to racial issues, social issues, and we've saw the conservative side blame the Democrats, but or you can even say they call liberals or however you want to call it. But there's something happening inside of story number 8. And what makes this story even more interesting is a GOP congresswoman who fled the Soviet Union. She's warning Americans that socialism is not pretty when the government runs out of money. So it may be time to enforce the idea of business ownership and upping your education and your IQ when it comes to what your dollar can do for the local community, especially when it comes to following the rules. Now, while Trump supporters say that the election was interfered with, this is another issue that is coming about when you talk about government and the process. Now, a lot of Trump supporters say that this election was interfered with, but government officials say that the election was the securest election in American history. This is causing a lot of people to be unsettled about the election results, especially Trump supporters. So there's a lot going on inside of Story Number 8 that reveal what is really happening on the ground and why there's such a big seesaw battle happening right now in the political arena and in the social arena, the civil arena. So many things happening across America. That is also reflecting chaos around the world. Peru has also been in the news having a problem with their government officials. So this is happening on multiple levels, big levels, and COVID-19 may have exposed a lot of this and a lot of what people are actually going through when it comes to equality and equal ration of resources and money. So keep an eye on Story Number 8. Big headline and developing news story that made this week. Well, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the media, the journalists, the people on the front lines that keep us informed. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator. If you want to show us some support, all you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program. I am out of here. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a long week. But I'll go through 200 or more stories again next week just for you to keep you informed. That's the goal. So thank you so much for tuning into the Mediator this week with me, Brian West. Have a good week, everybody. Peace.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.